Welcome to the WTBS NCAA Top 10. I do this list weekly. Last year, I got to do this with Ron a few times, did it with Ben a few times, did it with Roland a few times, and I just released my week to week top 10. Now, my week to week top 10 isn't exactly what you're going to see in the AP poll, the coaches poll. I'm a little different. I just give like my power rankings, and then we move from there as the weeks go. So the list is very fluent. It does mirror a lot closer towards the end of the weeks what you see in the AP top 25 because we kind of know who's who by then. Ben, it's good to have you on here, bro. What are you excited about? I know you're a Texas Longhorns fan, so what are you excited about the Texas Longhorns season this year? What do you want to see them?
I think the main thing for the Longhorns is I think it's kind of that make or break year. We're really going to find out a lot about Steve Sarkisian, the coach. Obviously, his troubled past at Washington. He's found himself back at Texas, made us pretty relevant as far as recruiting goes. They're kind of back on top to landing five-star recruits like Arch Manning. And the fact that they're able to redshirt, Arch Manning, obviously we're not going to see him much this year. We saw a lot of Quinn Ewers last year, inconsistent. Many think that if he doesn't get hurt against Alabama, Texas beats Bama early in the season. So I think that the hype is there for Texas this year. I do think it's deserved, but we're going to find out if the coaching staff, is good enough to put them over the top because the players are there.
And a lot of times we see the Texas is back early in the season and we're not back. I'm not one of the guys that likes to say Texas is back. I'm not going to put that on us.
I love to say it.
But we do got one of the best quarterback rooms in my opinion. And you talked about Arch Manning, and he's a solid quarterback. He might not even be the backup quarterback at this point because we've seen Malik Murphy make some big strides, and he's no slouch either. So Texas does not have a problem in the quarterback room. The real question is, how do they replace B. John Robinson this year?
I mean, both running backs. They lost both running backs to the draft as well.
Yeah, Roshan also.
Really
now, the answer is supposed to be Jonathan Brooks. He was pretty good last season.
Right, and they also got a really top recruited running back coming in as well. I believe they have a freshman coming in. His name is slipping my mind right now, but I mean, Texas, one thing they always got is some running backs, in the tuck. So they keep a bag full of running backs, a stable. And for the receivers, we saw a lot of potential from the receivers, especially on the deep balls last year. Ewers can really sling the ball around. He got rid of the pinche cuz haircut, the taquache mullet. And he's back to a professional haircut. He looks like he's ready, to take that professional leap, man. So I'm very bullish on Texas. I'm easy to homer for Texas. But yeah, Texas is back, baby.
All right. Well, I don't think you're going to like this next slide then because you are bullish on Texas and they do not make my initial top 10. I'll read off the list for you. 10 USC, 9 Clemson, 8 Washington, 7 Penn State, 6 Florida State, 5 Alabama, 4 LSU, 3 Ohio State, 2 Michigan, 1 Georgia. Now we see the top 4 teams, 3 out of them were in the playoffs last year. We don't see TCU here. We don't see them in the top 10. They lost a lot. I think they've lost too much to be in this top 10. Texas, to me.
But they are in the AP top 10, right? TCU?
No. Nope.
They're not? Okay.
No. So they're a fringe top 15 team for me. They're not in the top 10. Now let's talk about number 1, why I have Georgia there. I mean, obviously, national champs are back-to-back. They got the best talent on their team. Brock Bowers is back. Their question is the quarterback play, replacing that, Stetson Bennett, who, was really good for them for the 2 years. That's going to be tough. But if anybody can do it, it's Georgia because Georgia's heart is in the defense. That's what they rely on. They get turnovers, they play the short game, and then they can win games. So Georgia will be competitive regardless. Number 2, Michigan, very well deserved, returning their quarterback, Ben.
Yeah.
Returning their running back.
Yeah, one of the few teams returning a lot. Their coach with a 3-game suspension to start the season.
Yeah, so they appealed the suspension. Then Michigan said, no, we're going to self-impose the suspension. So Harbaugh's out for 3 games regardless. I don't see them losing those 3 games. There's too much talent on that team to lose those 3 games.
No, yeah, I agree with you. And I actually, personally, I think that Michigan should be number one just because of the QB change for Georgia. I know that it's, the defense. They preach defense, defense, and they've had the best defense, back to back
Come on.
going for a three-peat. But when you replace somebody like Stetson Bennett, who ran that system, knew it like the back of his hand, if they find themselves in close games, and I know, shout out Noe, he said that they don't really play anybody until Tennessee at the
later in the season too.
Yeah, so that quarterback's going to be able to ease himself in there. But I would put Michigan at number one personally.
Well, that's fair. I can see a case for that. Number 3, Ohio State. They will have to replace C.J. Stroud. Now, the rumor is the quarterback that is replacing him was Marvin Harrison's quarterback in high school. Nice. So you got a guy who can feed your best talent on the field. You return Emeka Egbuka, the other receiver, and you already know Ohio State is wide receiver U at this point. They just produce wide receiver talent. So that's not going to be a problem replacing Jackson Smith and Jigba. They've replaced Olave over the years. That's not going to be the problem.
Yeah, no, I mean, they seem to reload, and with them, I mean, they're just a staple, right? Every year they're kind of going to be in the mix now. Yeah. But another question mark at quarterback, right? I don't know if their defense usually is as dominant as Georgia's is. I do see Michigan beating Ohio State, for the Big Ten, for the Big Ten title, but that quarterback, it's going to be, it's going to come down to the quarterback. Ohio State could be a team that falls out of that top 4 and possibly doesn't make the playoffs if the quarterback doesn't live up to, expectations for a blue chip school like Ohio State.
Yeah. And number 4, I got LSU over Alabama this year. They did beat Alabama last year. That quarterback did look pretty solid. He's returning. Brian Kelly's second year here. So I think LSU is a little bit more complete. Alabama's having to replace their Heisman winner, Bryce Young, who went number 1 overall to the Carolina Panthers in the draft. So when you're returning a quarterback compared to having to replace one, I got to give you the edge. What do you think? Am I wrong for giving LSU the edge, even, with the win last year and the situation Alabama's in now?
No, yeah, I think if you're considering in last season's win, even though that was against a Bryce Young led Alabama team, and this won't be. I mean, if LSU and Brian Kelly is a coach who has had his programs only get better after he gets there. Wherever he's been, the team gets better.
Notre Dame, they both got
chemistry. Better. Yeah, so I don't disagree. I mean, I love to see it. I'm not a big Alabama fan, so I hope that you're right here.
All right. Well, we'll move off the top 10. Anybody that's not in the top 10 that you can say, man, they deserve to be there, Justin. Why didn't you include them week 1?
Yeah, I mean, of course, like I said, I'm a homer. I would say Texas, but I would maybe get Washington out of there and put Texas in the top 10 if I had to. I know that Washington returns Penix, right? Their quarterback.
Yeah, Penix Jr., they beat us, man. They beat us in that championship game.
Yeah, they did. But wasn't that a bowl game?
Yeah, the bowl game. They beat us.
It was a bowl game. So, I mean, I don't think Bijan was playing in the bowl game.
No, he wasn't.
Yeah, so I'm not counting a bowl game. If it wasn't a power game.
Well, you know me, I'm a Texas fan, so I hope that's the truth. I hope we can see ourselves in a playoff this year.
Hey, if we start off the season 2-0 and, we beat Bama, we're in the top 10 right away. I think you said that Texas came out at number 12, so they're going to have an opportunity right away to get themselves inside the top 10.
All right. Well, we don't have any top 25 games this year in the first week. Until September 3rd, we're going to get a top 25 game. So I'm not going to talk about any games for the week. I do want to highlight who are the players to watch this year. If you're looking at futures, if you're looking at things like that, you're looking at, well, I want to know who's who.
Heisman watch.
The Heisman watch, you can say. One player definitely won't be on the Heisman watch that's in here, but he deserves to be mentioned. But let's start with the Heisman watch. Like you said, last year's Heisman winner, Caleb Williams, the number 1 here. Probably could be a number 1 pick. People say he's like Patrick Mahomes. They say that's his style of game. That's what he brings to the table. He was the Heisman winner last year. He's returning to USC. He's got a coach. He knows that system through and through. He's been with him for 3 years, 1 in Oklahoma, 1 at USC. Now this is going to be his 3rd year. He knows what he's doing with that offensive system. Expect him to be electric week in and week out. He plays in the Pac-12, which is pretty much disbanding. So I think USC has a chance to win the Pac-12 now, especially with Utah, weakening up and things like that. I think USC has a chance. So pay attention to Caleb Williams this year. What do you think, Ben?
Yeah, I mean, he's probably the favorite coming in, for a back-to-back. Mahomes, could he be maybe Kyler Murray?
He's
I
bigger.
mean, he's
He's about
bigger.
Mahomes size.
Okay, I didn't know that. All right, so I guess not. But I mean, he was USC won just on the strength of him a lot last year. I remember me and you talking about the defense early in the year when they were kind of getting a lot of turnovers, but
I don't
they
expect
were
that this year.
yeah, they were a defense that would give up a lot of yards. They'd give up a lot of points. So Caleb Williams and his offensive line wasn't very good last year either. He was running around looking like Patrick Mahomes outside of the pocket, having to be a hero for the team. So rightfully so. I think that obviously he's in here. He's the favorite to be the number one pick at quarterback. Teams, we might see teams tanking for him early this coming NFL season, depending on how his college season goes. So yeah, I think rightfully so he should be here.
All right. Moving over to the hybrid because he's listed as a tight end. This is Brock Bowers from Georgia. But last year he had a rushing touchdown. He had a receiving touchdown at tight end. He had a receiving touchdown at wide receiver. And I think he even threw a trick pass to Stetson Bennett at one point in one of the games. This guy, I'm not going to say Percy Harvin. I don't want to compare him because he doesn't have Percy Harvin's speed, but he's a utility player. He's not just a tight end. This guy can play receiver. He can line him up in the backfield. He can do all things. This guy is a very good player, very good football player, is what I'll say. Ben, what do you think about me having Brock Bowers at number 2 here at players to watch this year?
Yeah, I mean, I think rightfully so. You're pretty heavy on the Georgia players. They've just been, a factory of NFL talent the last couple of years under Kirby Smart. So this guy's kind of like that unicorn. I know that's a term used a lot in basketball, but I think in football he's football's version of a unicorn. So interested to see how they use him, especially with, like we said, breaking in a new quarterback. They might run a lot more short action, maybe behind the line of scrimmage action for somebody like him, since he is that X factor game changer type player. So yeah, interested to see how they use him. And is he eligible for the draft after this year?
Yeah, he's eligible after this year.
Where do you expect? I mean, he'll be the first tight end pick, but do you expect, like, if he has, a season kind of like last, that he could be a top 10 player chosen?
Yeah, he'll be like the Kyle Pitts of the world that get chosen a little higher because of how much athleticism they have.
Okay.
And especially if the Steelers tight end that got picked from Georgia, the 6'8" guy, if he performs really well, they're gonna be like, he couldn't get over Brock Bowers as a starter. That means Brock Bowers is even that much better. Then I think so.
Yeah.
So number 3, Marvin Harrison Jr. In my opinion, the best receiver last year in college football. Probably will be the best receiver again this year in college football. He does have NFL pedigree. You know who his dad is for the Colts. Played all those years. Went to the U. Actually, I'm not sure if he went to Syracuse. This guy can ball, bro, and he's gotten faster. As long as he stays healthy, I think he has a real shot to, usurp Caleb Williams as the number 1 pick. I really believe that. I mean, people are very high on Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yeah,
what do you think at him at 3?
No, I agree with you, and especially at the combine, I think he's going to be one of those guys that's just, there's already going to be the hype, but then at the combine, they're going to see him running routes against air and doing these drills, and it's going to, the hype always goes up on these players during the combine. So I see it. Yeah. And like you said, the pedigree of who his dad was, Hall of Famer, exact same position. He definitely is faster than his dad was. And I know that they said that he's been working on his speed as well, too.
You mentioned it's 4.3 now, so
yeah, I don't know
4.3 at a combine.
But even at 4.4, bro, like with his hands, his size, running, he's sick. So I agree with you. Somebody's going to have a hell of a wide receiver next year. This is going to be the guy in fantasy football next year, baby, that people are going to be targeting. Yep.
But let's just say he hits 4.3, Ben. I think that would be enough to push him towards 1 or 2 spot for the draft. I mean, that would be insanity. Number 4 comes from the defensive side. Harold Perkins Jr., the outside linebacker for LSU. We saw the speed last year. We saw what he brings to the defense. Brian Kelly always has a good linebacker. This is what this is right here. This is a really good linebacker in the SEC. I think his name's going to stand out like the names of the Alabama linebackers for years, the Georgia linebackers. That's who this
for him. I haven't really kept up as a Coach O truther for sure. But I believe it. They always keep a pretty stout defense. I mean, they're known for having electric defensive players. So yeah, and you said Kelly always keeps a linebacker, man. I was seeing that Johnny Manziel Netflix doc, and Manti Te'o was there sitting
Yeah.
next to him. That was hilarious.
Well, Harold Perkins was good for 13 sacks last year, 3 forced fumbles, and 1 interception. So he balls,
Game
bro. He
changer.
balls.
Yep, game changer.
Sir. All right. And number 5 player to watch. I think this should be something you could play on a Heisman future here. Drake May out of North Carolina, returning for what is this redshirt sophomore season under Mac Brown. What do you think about Drake May? You think that you could play him as a Heisman future?
Yeah, I do like it. I mean, they're gonna have to lose maybe one game, probably beat Clemson in the championship game there. But for him, North Carolina, they've seen these quarterbacks get drafted. I mean, that's where Trubisky came out of.
Yep, Mitch.
That's where Sam Howell, who's now starting for the Commanders, came out of. And he just got named the starter. So this kid is a dual threat. You see him run a lot too, has a really good arm. So this is a player that I watched a lot last year. North Carolina overs were the play because this guy's a baller. So they were putting up 30, 40 points every week. But I do think that, maybe him as a Heisman candidate, his team isn't as stacked as Caleb Williams, is. But, well, actually they may be because the defense for USC isn't going to be the best. It's just a division, the conference that they play in. USC does have the advantage in a very weak Pac-12. So, yeah, Drake May, he'd have to really do some Johnny Manziel things to win the Heisman for North Carolina this year.
Yeah, I think for the best quarterback, the ACC, it's a race between him and Jordan Travis at this point, the Florida State quarterback.
Yeah.
Well, that's it for us today. Just my super early top 10. College football does start Saturday. We're going to get some games, but it's not until the Saturday after that where you got this full slate of like 50 games going on. And then that Sunday, I believe, is when you're going to get that LSU game versus, I believe, do you remember who it was? It's Florida State LSU.
Yeah.
That game right there is going to be great to watch. It's 2 top 25 teams going at it. We'll have coverage on that next week, me and Ben. Definitely.
Yeah, man. Like you said, the biggest game I think this week is Notre Dame and Navy as far as, nationally televised. Yeah. Caleb Williams will be in action against San Jose State, so you'll probably see some Madden numbers put up. Florida against Utah, not a bad game. That's the 7 o'clock on ESPN, or is it?
I don't think that's this Saturday. That's Thursday, August 31st.
Oh, it is.
So,
you're right.
Yeah, so this Saturday, Navy, Notre Dame, UTEP, Jacksonville State,
right.
UMass, New Mexico
6
State.
Games.
Yeah, Ohio, San Diego State, Hawaii, Vanderbilt, like you mentioned, San Jose State and USC, and then Florida International and Louisiana Tech. Now, Ben, is Florida International the coach? Is now coached by Herman? Is that true? Tom Herman's their coach?
I don't know.
Just because I saw today that what's his name? Casey Thompson got named the starting quarterback for the Tom Herman team.
What was that? You broke up.
Casey Thompson was named the starter for Tom Herman's team, but I just don't know if that was
okay. It used to be Skip Holtz, and it says here they moved on from him after 9 seasons. So yeah, it may be Tom Herman because they just hired a new coach.
Yeah, it's Florida Atlantic that he coaches for. Well, that's it for us, Ben. Is there anything else you want to talk about in college football coming up? Anything you like plays wise for week 1?
No, man, I haven't done any of that, to be honest. I'm looking forward to the UFC this weekend. Got Max Holloway and the Korean Zombie in action. So I will be watching football because I'm off, but we'll get into more, and these shows might run, 10 minutes longer next time because we'll actually have games
to
being played, and things to talk about.
All right. Sounds good. I think that's it for us. Peace.
Peace.